Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven, and this is the Storytime channel. Before we get into the stories, I want to mention that I have a new channel called Storytime where I'm covering more spooky boards. So if that sounds like something you'd like, why not check it out after this video? Link is in the description. But today we have some malicious compliance stories, and our first story of the day is by Story Scalar. Theater is not a good reason for a field trip? We'll go to the parliament then. Seeing all the memes about school and reading some malicious compliances done by students reminded me of one that was done against the local education committee. This happened at the end of the 90s. In my country, in order for a school to go to a field trip, they have to ask for permission from the local education committee. They also have to prove that the trip provides an educational purpose. The hero of the story was my literature teacher, let's call her Chloe. The year before me, she was teaching Antigone, the ancient classic of Sophocles. Because she always tried to provide the best education for her students, she found out that a theater trip would stage the play for a limited time in the capital. That was a rare opportunity because most of the ancient classics are staged during the summer on a big theatric festival. She talked about to the headmaster, who agreed that it was a good opportunity, and they submitted a petition for a field trip. The education committee answered a week later, basically making the school miss their window, that the request was declined due to, and I quote, "watching a theatrical performance doesn't cover any educational purpose, since it's an entertainment activity." The headmaster and Chloe were disappointed to say the least, but they couldn't do anything about it. This time, Chloe did the best she could, assigning roles to some of her students and kind of playing the whole thing during class. But Chloe remembered. The next year, it was my class's turn tackling on one of the classics with Chloe. Now, our first year in high school, the equivalent of sophomore in the US, a major overhaul had happened to all of our subjects, removing some, adding others, and changing some. In literature, the change was made from Antigone to Oedipus Rex and Oedipus at Colono, the oft-forgotten sequel. What? Did you think Hollywood invented the unnecessary sequels? And guess what? A troupe in the capital is staging Oedipus Rex. Cue malicious compliance. That year, Chloe had done her homework. She had read the rules and regulations from cover to cover. She submitted again, but slightly changed. You see, during the overhaul, Political Science 101, not the exact name of the subject, but that was the gist of it, was added. So she asked for a field trip to the parliament. When the committee asked what was the educational purpose of such a visit, she said it would give the students an idea of how democracy worked. They begrudgingly accepted, but as always, asked for receipts. Important for later. So one sunny morning, most of our class got on the bus and traveled to the capital. After a 3-hour trip, we were outside the parliament. Chloe asked to take some photo of the whole group outside the building. We went in, signed the log, Chloe got a copy of the log, had a 10-minute tour, went to the gallery and took some photos. Back then wasn't a problem. All in all, we spent about 40 minutes in the building and then left. Outside, we were given a free pass until 5 p.m. It was around noon to do whatever we wanted. We were to gather at 5 p.m. and go to the theater. After the play, on our way, Chloe asked any of us who took photos to print them as soon as possible and bring her copies. Aftermath. Kids being kids, we had talked to friends from other schools about going as a class to see the play. That reached the committee, which in turn fined our school for using a field trip for entertainment purposes. The headmaster and Chloe challenged it. A hearing was scheduled and some of the students, including me, are called as witnesses. We are grilled by the committee, answered truthfully, instructed to tell the truth, not to try to cover anyone, and then the chair of the committee calls Chloe in and lays down the law, saying that she tried to game the system by using an excuse to go to the theater. Chloe produces the photos and the copy of the log. When someone tried to contest the claim based on time, Chloe asked one simple question. Can you point to me where exactly in the rules and regulations says we have to spend a certain amount of time to a certain activity to be considered educational? She was met by blank stares. Not having a proper answer, the fine was rescinded and the school was reimbursed for the trip. After that, other schools in the area started using the same plan for field trips. One final note, As I found out later, except from the prejudice that theater and art museums are entertainment, there was another reason for the committee to reduce the field trips. The ministry provided a hefty budget to the local communities for field trips. At the end of the school season, whatever was left on the budget was redistributed to the members of the committee as a bonus. A lot of local education committees kept the field trips to a bare minimum, with one having not approved a field trip for 4 years. Of course, it's the money at the very end of the day. Not even in the US specifically. Wherever you go, it seems whoever presides over this stuff makes bad decisions in the interest of filling their pocketbooks. When you were in school, did you have the opportunity to go on many field trips? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Watermelon545. Classmate is mad I'm forcing her to eat ethnic food? Go eat a loaf of bread. This happened about a year ago now when I was in high school. My calculus class was very chill. About 20 kids who were all friendly with each other, a laid-back but enthusiastic teacher, and a light enough workload that we could afford to goof off in class, but still learn and do well. At some point in the year, I got really into cooking. It's my stress reliever. My family couldn't possibly eat the amount of food I was making, so I started bringing it into school and hosting Friday parties in my calc class, with my teacher's approval of course. Now, I'm Vietnamese and I live in a predominantly white town. This is only important because it meant that most kids from town only ate American or European foods and weren't used to eating other ethnic foods. Last year, around Lunar New Year, I wanted to bring in some Vietnamese foods to celebrate. It is a very important time of year for my family. I ended up making a bunch of bond de lan, a steamed layer cake and a traditional Vietnamese dessert. Some of my friends from class found out I was going to bring in a traditional dish and brought in their own traditional dishes from their own cultures, whether they celebrated Lunar New Year or not. We had different Indian, Korean, Filipino, and Spanish desserts. It was great and I was really excited that my friends wanted to celebrate with me. Apparently, this was an issue for one girl in my class. I would say bond de lan is an acquired taste, so when not a lot of people ate it, I wasn't offended. I knew not everybody would like it. There was a lot of other food anyways. During our lunch period, one of my friends, who wasn't in our class but knew I brought food in, overheard a girl from my class complaining about the food while on the lunch line. Apparently, she was saying really negative things about how I forced everyone to eat weird Chinese foods. Later that day, I texted her just saying I heard she didn't like the food and wanted to know why. I don't really care when people don't like the food. I make it for myself and bring it in when I have extra anyways, but her calling it weird Chinese foods when she knows I'm Vietnamese didn't sit right with me. Welp, she texted back that it was rude of me to bring in weird ethnic foods that nobody would have liked except for me, and said I should have known better since most of the class was white. I told her that I like to bring in food to share because I feel like it and that I don't have an obligation to cater to her tastes. If she has an issue with it, she literally does not have to eat it. And other people can bring in food too, so if she wanted to, she could bring in something more to her tastes. After that, she just told me that I shouldn't bring in ethnic and foreign foods and stick with American foods. Because we're in America. Excuse me? Like, how much you want to bet if I brought in jambalaya, which originated in Louisiana, she would call it a weird foreign food? Fine, she only wants to eat American foods, then she can eat American foods. The next week, I brought in a bunch of oliebollen, a Dutch donut, and started passing them out at the beginning of class. When I got to her desk, I pulled out a loaf of Wonder Bread and plopped it on her desk saying, "Sorry, but these are Dutch, too ethnic. Here you go. All American cuisine." Later, she texted me asking what the freak my problem was, so I told her that almost every single food I brought in this year was ethnic, and that it pissed me off she only had an issue when it wasn't European. She's entitled to not liking Asian foods, but if you're going to complain about it being ethnic, then you better have that same attitude when the ethnic food is white. And especially don't call another person's culture weird. She didn't complain about the food again. It is really disappointing to see how many people can be willingly ignorant and willfully dismissful about another person's culture. Something that's really important to somebody, part of their identity, and you just say, "Oh yeah, they brought in some weird ethnic Chinese food." Even going beyond just how rude it is to dismiss their culture like that, they brought in food for free out of the kindness of their own hearts. And you're the one complaining and acting all entitled like that? She deserved to get that Wonder Bread. In fact, she deserved to only get the top and bottom slices that nobody ever wants to eat. This next story is by It's Duper. Was forced to do a task, got my entire chain of command fired. I've been serving in a certain military branch for 5 years, and I'm nearing the end of my contract, so the give a care is completely gone. I'm in charge of inventory of specific pieces of equipment, smaller pieces that are used by many people at my job. From time to time, these pieces disappear. Most of the time, that just means things are misplaced, but we just got out of a certain period where we had many hired contractors at our job that tend to take things. Now, every once in a while, we conduct an inventory of these pieces of equipment for accountability reasons. When we lose things, it looks very bad on my work, more specifically, bad on my bosses. So I prepared the inventory and was startled by the amount of missing pieces. I did everything I needed to do and presented the inventory to my boss. He didn't believe we had so many pieces missing and asked for me to inventory them again. So I did, got the same number, and put the inventory in his inbox. A few months go by and I get the same thing. There can't be that many, do another one. So I'm very compliant and do it again. And again, and again. This gets dragged on over a year, and I'm starting to notice something. My boss is about to leave soon, and he is deliberately pushing this off to the next guy to cover himself. So last week, I was sleeping since I work nights, and I'm woken up. My boss tells me I have to do a specific survey with my coworkers that will get sent up to the head honcho. This survey allows the small guy to have a voice directly to the top. I tell him that I have the night watch, but he doesn't care and demands I go and do this survey. Fine. Before the survey starts, our boss tells us we need to be completely honest, and all these surveys are anonymous. Rad. I wrote down what had been happening with the inventory and directed where they could find the documentation of the done inventories. Fast forward to yesterday, all my bosses are fired, and now I'm reporting to new people who are now fixing the issues with the inventory. Honestly, that boss was very lucky that OP didn't rat them out all that time. They're lucky OP was overly compliant. I guess, you don't want to rock the boat, but if you see a boss abusing their responsibilities, you might want to mention something to somebody up high. And our final story of the day is by Jag666UK. I give random answers to forced feedback survey. Firstly, let me begin by saying I have no issues, in general, with feedback surveys. I get them all the time via email and text whenever I buy online, visit a restaurant or some point of interest, etc. I also like to smack the little smiley face button as I go through an airport. I generally give feedback if they have exceeded, or conversely, not met my expectations. For me, that's the point. Feedback should be optional, not mandatory. However, a few years back, before there were numerous free services, I subscribed to a prominent credit check service here in the UK. It was only £7 per month, and for that, I got regular reports on my credit worthiness and advice on how to improve my credit rating. All good. After a few months, I realized that, since my credit rating was okay, I wasn't really using the service that I was paying for, so I decided to cancel the subscription. After speaking with a representative who tried to persuade me to continue my subscription for a lesser amount, I was passed to the cancellations department. Cue the following conversation. Hi, Mr. Jags, I understand you wish to cancel your subscription. Yes, please, I am no longer using the service. Okay, we can do that. I just need to run through an exit feedback survey first. Please just cancel my subscription. I am not interested in taking your survey, and I have given you the reason for wanting to cancel. I am afraid it is a part of the process. We have to do the survey before we can cancel your subscription. That's ridiculous. I am not canceling because I am unhappy with the service. It is because I am not using it. There is your feedback. I am sorry, but it is a requirement. Fine. So what is the reason you want to cancel your subscription? Really? Because it's green. Sorry? Because it's green. But that does not make any sense. Neither does forcing me to take a survey I don't want to take, and I will be supplying similar random answers to all your questions. Slight pause. Right, I have now canceled your subscription. You will still have use of our service up to XX date. Thank you, goodbye. There may be some who will say he's only doing his job, and he probably was, but forcing someone to give feedback before they agree to stop taking your money is surely counterintuitive and would rarely end in positive feedback. I'm definitely with OP on this one. If I call up a company and I say, I want to stop paying for your services, I want you to stop charging me, the last thing I would want to do is sit there for 15 minutes and go through some last-ditch therapy session on trying to convince you to stay, trying to psychoanalyze all the specific reasons you don't want to pay for it anymore. Just cancel my service and let me go about my day. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.